So today, it's kind of a slow day at work. It's a little discouraging, but it is what it is. That's one thing that the Lord has been teaching me to be not just patient, but trusting in Him. You know, um, it's difficult. It's easy to say that I trust God when He comes through, right? Because, like, the job that I'm at now, I've been there for, September makes a year, September, October time. So I'm a couple of months off from that. And when I came to that job, I was leaving this other business that was really slow, and it was just it was hard. It put me in a difficult position financially. So I was freaking out, but, God came through and He gave me this job. It's in the same trade, it's just a different company. And it was good. I mean, it's still good, but what I'm saying is it felt good to see God do that in that way, right? It feels good to see God move. And it's easy to say that we trust Him in that place when you see Him moving, right? But then things kind of began to slow down again. I mean, it's the same trade, it's the same industry. So, and it wasn't just the business that I left that was having an issue, it was everyone. This company just so happened to be fortunate to not feel the effects too bad. But anyway, regardless, it's still happening. And it's been difficult to see that, like, no calls are coming in. And like today, out of a full 8-hour day, I worked about 4 hours, and I'm blessed enough that, we're not freaking out. We're not struggling. We're not like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We're going to be on the streets. Thank God that He woke me up from that place to be able to prepare somewhat, to be okay. But at the same time, it is kind of a scary feeling, It is kind of a scary feeling to see that, oh, my check is not going to be as full as the previous one, or it's not going to be what I was hoping it would be, things like that. And it's difficult, because my flesh wants to be afraid, and I want to be, I guess the word I tell myself is proactive. I want to do things. But it's difficult to just stand still and let Him do what He's going to do, because He does it anyway, right? He did it the first time. I didn't look for this job. They found me, so that's just the difficult thing to do. We'll go back over here. And that's kind of where I've been the last couple of days, just being afraid, but not allowing it to rule me. I'm not freaking out. I'm just being real right now. And that's what has been happening. But, it's in these places where I do have to remember what God has done and that He's going to come through again, because that's what He always does. So even when we don't see it, it doesn't mean He's not there. It doesn't mean He's not doing it, And even still, too, like, I've been in this place of what I feel is preparation and possible transition, but there's no transition yet. This is more like of a life thing. And that's been playing into it too, because our church has just launched a school of ministry, and I signed up right away. Like, there was so much confirmation from the Lord that I didn't have to sit and wait and pray and fast. And, like, God had already been pulling me in this direction. So when they announced this, at the time that they did, I'm like, dude, that's straight up what I've been drawn to already. Like, God has been already pulling me in that direction. So I signed up, and it's been really cool. The guy who is in charge is one of the associate pastors, and he's a really, really cool dude, and he really likes me, and I really am grateful to have him in my life. He's made it very clear that he's going to be with me throughout this whole thing, because I was the first student to sign up. That's how excited I was about it. And since he's been the one, doing all the work behind the scenes with it, setting it up, all like he's the one very involved. He was excited, he's like, man, I'm gonna be with you through all of this, I'm gonna help you, because we had a meeting about it yesterday, and I asked him about it. I asked him, like, how's the schedule gonna look? Where are we gonna do not where, but like how often, what time, that type of stuff. And even, like, I asked him, outside of the classes that we're taking, like in the in-person classes, Like, how much is expected outside of class, you know? And he was basically saying, like, you know, it is college level, so it is going to be quite a bit, but it's not going to be overwhelming. And he was, don't worry, I'm going to be there with, so he's very encouraging, you know, he's very much like, he's such a good mentor at this point for me, you know? So there's been so much positivity in that area. But the downside is, you know, with the work that I do, part of the job is, you know, we're on call on weekends and even, you know, rotating evenings and stuff. And with this being night classes, I found out that it's Tuesdays and Thursday nights. So I told my boss that, and though he was a really cool dude, you know, and he's been really good, of course it wasn't something he wanted to hear. You know, he was a little, you could just tell he didn't like it, but he was cool. He wasn't mean, he wasn't rude, nothing. He told me to not worry about it too. Like, he was reassuring, but even that, you know, makes me think, and that pretty much takes out the rest of my week, because Monday nights my wife does something, so I watch the kids. Tuesday nights I'm going to be going to class. Wednesday nights we have church. I'm on the worship team, so I don't miss that. Thursday nights I'll be going back to classes, and then whoever's on call for the weekends takes Friday. So pretty much for the duration of the classes that I'm going to be taking, and it's pretty much like the same schedule of like a regular school, right? Like a school year. And it's a 2-year program, possibly leading into a full 4-year program. And that has been difficult in the sense of, you know, I feel like I'm letting my job down too, you know? And that's where there's so much that's going into this thing, this school that we're doing, right, at our church. The church is exploding, it's growing, it's there's so much acceleration that's happening in our church right now. And I don't know all the ins and outs. Nothing has been confirmed, or nothing. Like, I don't know the details, but it's pretty obvious that with everything that's been happening at our church, it's definitely going to have to grow in one way or another. Meaning, possible larger building, possible other locations. There's so many options that, you know, something has to happen, because the church is just growing exponentially. And like I said, I don't know anything. I don't know, like, I'm not in the staff meetings. Like, I'm not anything like that, you know? You could just see from the outside how much this thing is growing and what God is doing here. And one thing that his name is Pastor Mark. One thing that he said at our meeting yesterday, or at our interview thing, he said this is the place that they're going to be looking if they ever need to hire anybody, whether here now or in the future, whatever God brings, whatever the future holds. This is a full-on, like, discipleship, mentorship, schooling. Like, so much is going on here, you know, and it's very exciting. It's very scary, but it's exciting. So that's what I've been kind of dealing with too, in a good way, not in a bad way. But, like, you know, because today I was pretty bummed out, because I told my boss about I'm going to be going to school Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, and, you know, his response, and just feeling like I just let the company down, because it's a small company. And I know that, you know, because I had already been doing plumbing for a little under 10 years when I joined, I could definitely hold my weight with the company. Like, they didn't have to hold my hand and train me for a bunch of months and years. And, like, I came in, really all I had to learn was just the ins and outs of, like, let's say the pricing and certain procedures with, you know, invoicing and customers, you know, simple things, you know, just kind of how the business side of it works. But as far as the plumbing side, I could do whatever they threw at me, or still, you know. So I know that they depend on me. Plus, we've lost a couple guys, you know, so it's not a lot of us anymore. And it's made me feel bad that I feel like I'm letting them down. But, you know, as I was driving around today, and I was just kind of like thinking about these things and really trying to put into, like, just not put into perspective, but just looking at my perspective and God's perspective, and just kind of like looking at my whole life, I realized, you know, that my life is not about anything else other than God. You know, God has blessed me multiple times with work, with all these things, but ultimately that's not what my life is about. You know, my life is centered around Jesus. Like, that's the only reason I'm here. And I'm not just saying that just because, like, God literally told me that. I haven't said my story, but and I'll say it later. But one thing that I will share of that is when I was in the hospital in 2023, I had a supernatural like encounter with the Lord where like I was out of my body, and it was crazy. But anyway, one thing he told me there was, because I didn't want to come back. At the time, I thought I was dead. I thought I was with him. And he didn't let me stay with him because he said, you're not the only one that I love this much. So that put a lot on me. Like, I had already known. I had already this like weight in my heart, this burden in a good way, to help people, to do all kinds of stuff. But then when God told me that personally, it just felt like, wow, there's a big responsibility in my life. And if it wasn't for God loving other people, I wouldn't have to be here. So I think about that. I think about that when it comes to this now. Like, my life is not about anything else other than what God wants me to do. And if this school, like, obviously, like, this is a huge deal doing this. And if this school ends up leading to some type of ministry down the road, like leading stuff, like being a part, like, who knows? Because he even said this will equip you for a bunch of other stuff, right? It's not just for our church, but this is to help you and teach you. He goes, because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people who want to, open up their own churches in their neighborhoods. And he's talking about people at our church that he knows. He goes, they want to, go back to where they came from, their neighborhoods and all this, and open up churches. And these classes are going to equip them and help them and point them in the right direction, And so you never know what comes out of this. Or like, we don't know what's going to come out of this. But what I do know is that this is not by accident. And this is what I mean. It feels like this is preparation for a transition that God may have. And right now, it's basically like a leap of faith, because not only is work slowing down a little, that puts a little bit of stress, a little bit of pressure on me as far as finances. And I just told my boss I'm not available to work later throughout the week, right? So now I'm just left with, as far as anything outside of the normal 9 to 5 or whatever, with occasional weekends, when we rotate weekends, I can still do that. But it feels like, it almost feels like there's a lot of resistance to this. But with all the confirmation that God has given me and all the positive and the support that's coming with this schooling, I feel like this is God's will. Like, there's so many things that have aligned in this place, in this time, to where I feel like if I were to say no because I need more money, because I need to keep working, because these guys depend on me, all these things, which they're good things, but I feel like if I were to do that, I would be putting on the shelf a greater calling on my life that God has for me. And that's a difficult thing to recognize, because do we need money? Yes. I'm a father, I'm a husband, we have a house, right? Do I have a responsibility at work? Yes. Like I said earlier, we all pull our own weight right now. There's nobody in training, there's nobody, you know what I mean? So, and it's like, I have to recognize though, what did Jesus say? He said, you can't put anybody else above him, right? Like he said, if you love your mother and father above me, you're not worthy of me. If you love your son or daughter over me, you're not worthy of me, right? And he also said, you can't serve God and money at the same time. You're going to love one and you're going to love one and hate the other, or vice versa. So that's what I feel like I'm being tested with right now. So I'll let you guys know how that goes.